Welcome back. The state Senate has a new president, a lawmaker who's been in the legislative trenches in Concord for quite some time, working on big issues ranging from criminal justice to child protection, and sometimes the kinds of things voters rarely hear about, like ensuring the administration of government is as efficient as possible. Senate President Sharon Carson joins us this morning in studio. Madam Senate President, thanks for being here.
Good morning, Adam. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, your recent predecessors, Chuck Morse was, loved the state budget, was all about the dollars and cents. Jeb Bradley, sort of the great deal maker, all that experience in Concord and Washington. What motivates you as a public servant?
Well, I want this state to be the best place for people to come to. I want them to be able to raise their families here, get good jobs, be involved in their communities, and that really is multifaceted. It involves a lot of different areas. So that's what I'm hoping to bring to the legislature, to the Senate this year.
Everyone up in Concord is saying this is going to be a tough budget year, but if we don't see a significant economic downturn, do you think this is going to be big cuts, or are we looking at kind of holding the line on general fund spending, given that all that ARPA rescue money is going away?
Well, I think the first thing we're going to have to do is hold the line on spending. You're right, 100% right, the ARPA money is gone. I think we did a good job in dispersing that, especially with infrastructure projects that the state of New Hampshire needed to do. But that money is now gone, so we've got to go back to living within our means. And so we're going to go through the budget very carefully. Senator Jim Gray is going to be chairing Senate Finance again, and I have every confidence that he and the rest of the Finance Committee are going to do a great job.
The House is really into this idea of expanding education freedom accounts to universal access. Do you think that the state can afford to pick up that tab? Some estimated it could be up to $100 million in just the first fiscal year.
Well, that's the issue, is what is the cost? And we can't forget that we still have the education funding lawsuit looming over us. So I think we're going to be very cautious. I think people are excited about it, but we have to be very careful about what we do. And the Senate is going to do what the Senate always does. We're going to take our time, we're going to look at the issue, and we're going to look at the funding.
We're going to get to that education funding lawsuit in a minute. But I do want to ask, though, on education freedom accounts, is it problematic at all that the founding stated purpose of the EFAs was to help granted staters in need, and now to throw it wide open to everyone? I guess the question would be, why should the state be paying for rich kids to go to private school?
That's one of the problems that need to be tackled. We've got to do that. The program, I'm not sure if the performance audit is finished, but I think we also need to take a look at that as well. So again, the Senate is going to do its work.
The broader education funding debate, you mentioned the lawsuits, kind of the ball's in the Supreme Court's hands at the moment. Correct. They're doing hearings. No matter what's decided, do you think the courts can dictate to the legislature what should be spent on schools?
No, absolutely not. That's not their job. That's our job. That's the legislature's job. So, of course, we're going to wait to see what they come up with, but the responsibility has been given to the legislature by the people of the state, not to the courts.
Mm-hmm. This issue of special education funding, too, that's one that a lot of people are concerned about. Mm-hmm. Do you think that the state has to pay any extra attention there to how much is going out at the local level, even though that's not necessarily your purview?
We're obligated to provide an adequate education for everyone, and that includes special education students. So again, in looking at all the funding, we're going to have to consider that as well.
Governor-elect Ayotte on the campaign trail made a real priority of talking about the Group 2 retirement benefits, the public safety folks who saw their retirement benefits change about a decade ago, and they've made the argument over time, the police and firefighters have said this is a core issue for our recruitment and retention. We're losing a lot of the tenured guys to other industries, other jobs, other places. The governor-elect agrees with that. This is something that the Senate, in particular Senate Republicans, have kind of looked at the price tag at this one and said, gosh, we can't afford to go all the way back to the way it was. But does that Senate stance change, do you think, now that this is something Governor Ayotte's going to want?
Well, we're going to work with Governor-elect Ayotte to see what we can actually do. Again, it comes down to money. How much money do we actually have? And again, we're going to work with her, and we're going to try to resolve the issue.
Public safety has always been a top priority for you. I saw you be staying on the Senate Judiciary Committee, although not chairing it anymore because you're going to be so busy. You've been trying to resolve issues with the 2018 bail law for 6 years now. Do you want to take a wait-and-see period to see how this new magistrate system works, or do you think that more changes need to be made?
There's more changes that need to be made. If you talk with law enforcement, They've really pointed out some areas I think that we need to continue to work on, and I know Representative Terry Roy in the House has taken this on. So I look forward to the Senate working with the House on this issue to bring more legislation forward to address the problems.
And arguably, this is part of, we hear it from Mayor Rouet, this is part of this swing in Manchester to being a more Republican city. They see Republicans as doing more on this issue. Do you have to do some convincing work on the more libertarian side of the Republican Party to change something with this law to improve public safety?
Well, I think so, but that's mostly in the House, and that's why I'm pleased to see that Terry Roy is going to lead that effort. Representative Roy did a great job on marshaling through what we've already voted on, and we've tried, as you said, for quite a while to get it done. So I'm confident that Representative Roy is going to get the job done.
President-elect Trump has said a top priority is a mass deportation effort of illegal immigrants once he gets into office, day one. And he was, this is something that's supported by the majority of voters as well. When you look at the dollars and cents, though, do you think this is something that the state is going to have to spend a lot of extra money on, particularly, set aside this debate about potentially the National Guard being deployed, even if it's a matter of increased jail costs with all these extra people being processed?
Well, I hope President-elect Trump realizes that he's not going to be able to accomplish this by himself. He's going to need the states, and money will flow to the states to help us pay for that.
So you think that the feds should step in with some kind of assistance?
Yes, of course. They're the ones that are responsible for this fiasco, and they're going to have to give us money to help us get to that point where we're going to round these folks up.
Mm-hmm. You put so much time and effort into improving the state's child protection system. When we look at the state budget, if there do have to be cuts, do you want to try and shield DCYF and particular positions, the caseworker positions, to the extent possible to ensure that we don't see a rollback in the progress that's been made over the last decade?
We can't go back. We just can't. We need to step up and do the right thing for these kids that end up in our care. And it's not only me, there's been a great group of people that have worked on this issue for quite a while, and I don't want to see rollback. So I'll be fighting for keeping their funding. I'm going to end up sitting on finance as well, so I'm going to be fighting to keep that in place.
As you keep this issue front and center, and obviously a top priority for you, as we stated, what other changes would you like to see as the progress continues to be made? For
children?
Yeah.
We just need to continue to provide the services that children and families need. We need to pay attention to the Children's Protection Act. I chaired a subcommittee that met this late summer into the fall. We had to change it. We had to update it. So we need to continue to look at our existing laws and update them where they need to be updated.
Do you think, obviously we've seen the caseworker caseloads go down.
Mm-hmm.
How close are we to seeing this work being finished? I mean, it's never done,
no.
But, from where we were a decade ago, where do you need to get from here?
Well, I think part of the issue is we need to provide more services for families that are struggling. And we just really need to help them so that they don't lose their children, because that should be the very last thing that happens. So if we put money into preventative care rather than taking the kids away, I think it's better for the families. And what we've done is, when we do have to take kids away from the families, we've worked really hard to keep them with family and keep them in their neighborhoods, in their schools, with their friends. So it's not a big disruption for them.
One more question on public safety for you before we wrap up here. We've seen all of these horrifying crashes lately out on the roads, and certainly it can come and go, but really I-95 in particular, do we need to see more state troopers out on the roads there, and particularly with the deficit they've had in personnel?
I agree, we need to see more state troopers. The Speaker and I have had a meeting with Commissioner Quinn, especially concerning the speeding, the high limits of speed. So I would expect to see some legislation coming forward dealing with that. Right. So we're on it.
Okay.
We're working.
Madam Senate President, thanks so much for joining us on Close Up. We appreciate the time.
Thank you very much, Adam. I appreciate it.
And stay with us. When we come back, Governor Chris Sununu has quite a bit to say about the pardon of Hunter Biden, why he thinks the president should never have put himself in that position in the first place.